all of us that identify as a high achieving woman is what happens when you stop achieving? What happens when the thing that you are known for, which is being a high achiever, is no longer the case? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. If you are brand new to me, my name is Susan McVeigh, and I am a married mama of two and a business sales and wealth strategist. And I work with high achieving women so that they can achieve more fulfillment, more freedom, and ultimately be able to achieve their financial goals. So the reason why I wanted to talk about this one today, and if you are live or on the replay, please feel free to say hello and let me know where you're watching from. And if you are a high achieving woman, put 1 in the comments just so I know that I'm talking to the right people. And if you happen to be a gentleman, because I know that there's quite a number of you that we're encountering on this page, on this channel, please feel free to say hello because I specifically speak to high achieving women, but we're all human, right? And so hopefully the lessons, the insights, the experience that I have might be helpful to you regardless of how you identify. So, hello, Murat, eres guapa. Okay, thank you. You're more than happy to mosey on out. If this doesn't apply to you, then reclaim your time. So, if you are a high achieving woman, and the question that I'm posing to you is, what happens when you stop achieving? So I'm going to share from my own personal experience. You're more than welcome to chime in the comments and let us know if you have ever experienced this before. But what I know is that when you identify as a high achiever and you, for whatever plan or purpose, something that could have happened to you, for you, and through no fault of your own, that you may have had to put a pause on some of the things that have been important, to the degree where you stop achieving, where you are not able to achieve the things that you desire, where you no longer are able to accomplish all of those goals, maybe without the speed, the frequency, the ease, right? Like, have you ever had a situation where you go from being like top of the class, top of the world in whatever industry that you're in, and then all of a sudden, maybe you have a health concern, maybe you have something going on in your family, maybe you have a change in your career where suddenly your company is no longer doing the thing and you find yourself on the other side of a job, or your business needs to pivot, or you had to move, right? Any of these things that happen can sometimes rattle the cages and cause a lot of discomfort, to the point where you may have to pause, you may have to stop, you may have to not do the things that you were doing before, which in all honesty, it may have worked, but there was still something missing, okay? And if that's the case, then for you to now be here and thinking, what do I do when I consider myself to be a high achiever, especially as a woman, but now I am no longer achieving, right? How do those two kind of live together? So that's what we're talking about. Mona Get, you look unique. Thank you. Hey, Jacob, welcome. So, Jacob, I gave you a shout out, I think yesterday on my YouTube. Go watch, right? So if anybody's live, shoot your shot, right? And so this is a perfect segue and an example, because I'm going to give you here's a tangible, practical, like, how do we apply this so that you can get out of this rut? Because when you identify as whatever, and so this is where our mouth, the words that we speak, the Bible says life and death is in the power of the tongue. And what that actually means from a practical sense is that the things that we speak about ourselves are the things that either bring life and make us get up in the morning and have like a get up and go excitement, or it makes us feel depressed, down in the dumps, like we can't get out of bed. And I've been on both sides of this equation because, gosh, back in 2015, I could barely roll myself out of bed. And when I say roll, I literally mean roll myself out of bed, because there was so much pain in my whole body, but I felt it the most right here. And so when you are normal, getting in and out of bed is easy. But when you're not, when your body wants to fight against you, every ounce of your cells are screaming at you, then you have to figure out different ways to get out of bed. And so for me, I went from being a high achiever, the top of my game, killing it in every aspect, had a magnificent career. And I'm not sharing this to brag. I'm sharing this because I want to paint a picture of, like, it's so easy to go from here to like boom. And what do you do when that happens? Because you have to realize that what you do is not who you are, right? And when we get ourselves wrapped up in this identity of I am a high achiever, that was me. So does that describe you right now? Do you identify as a high achiever? What do you describe when you say I am blank? I am a high performer. I am a high achiever. I am a person of excellence. I am strong. I am powerful. Back then, I was none of those things because I was not strong. I was in pain and I couldn't take care of myself, let alone my children, let alone, be a partner for my husband. And I had to roll myself out of bed because I had to hold my neck so that I could roll in and out. Okay. So what happens when you can't even take care of the basic things? Well, it can make you feel like you can't do anything at all. Now, when you're starting something new, you are never going to be a high achiever in the thing that you want to do, right? So the identity of being a high achiever can be very useful because it can help us to believe that regardless of what it is that I'm doing, I will achieve high results. That's great. But if you allow that identity of I am only my results, I am only my achievements, I am only what I do to become everything about you, then because there will come a time where we don't achieve the same stuff that we achieved before. It changes, it evolves, it shifts. It has to because life changes. So when we allow how much we do or don't do, it can become very dysfunctional as a reflection of who we are and whose we are and how we operate in the world. Does this make sense? So for me, back in 2015, when I had this massive breakdown, I had identified so strongly with, I am a doer, I get shit done. Sorry for the swear word, right? But I get stuff done. I am powerful, I am strong, I am resourceful, like I am a leader, all of these things, which were all good and well and done, except for the fact that in that moment, I was having a full-on mental, physical, emotional, spiritual breakdown. And as a result, none of those statements that I believed about myself were true anymore. They needed to be shifted. And because I had placed so much value on my achievements, on me being an achiever, that when it was ripped away from me and I could no longer do anything, like I couldn't even get out of bed, that suddenly I felt that I was worthless and I had no value and that there was no meaning to my life, that the fulfillment or lack thereof that I had started to feel even with achievement in corporate, because I had, like I said, I was at the top of my game and working despite pain, working despite chronic illnesses, working despite the fact that I was exhausted and I wasn't even able to eat properly. Because I loved it. I loved what I was doing, right? And so one of the things that I know about high achievers is that you are so fulfilled by the love of the game that you're going to play regardless. That's how you know the difference between I'm doing this just for the outcome versus I'm doing this because I truly love it. Who is it? Is it Michael Jordan? Kobe Bryant, right? I'm going to use some sports people because even though I'm not a huge sports follower, I think that they're in the public eye, so it's a lot easier to kind of know who we're talking about. So Michael Jordan he loved the thrill of the game, right? He loved being on the court. And so those are the people that it's not because they have to play longer and harder, it's because they love it, that they can't imagine doing something else instead of it. And that's why it drove their work ethic and their subsequent results, right? Most of these people have a reputation for being the first on and the last off. And that can become a little bit dysfunctional. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that when you are a high achiever and you achieve great results, you are an excellent person at what it is that you do, that those skill sets, that knowledge is transferable to different domains. But the transition means that you are a beginner again in that specific area. And so while the skills and the knowledge and the expertise that you gained in one domain, so for me, as an example, the stuff that I learned in corporate, even the stuff that I learned while I was going to college and university, at the time, I don't think it was any use to anybody because I went to school for geography and English language. I mean, everybody asked if I was just going to be a teacher. Here's the irony. Now I spend the bulk of my life teaching other people. So I guess in some ways the answer was yes. But back then it was, you're going to go and teach geography. You're going to go and become an English teacher because that's the use that I had for that particular area of expertise that I learned in college. So the stuff that you learn, the stuff that you gain, the stuff that you experience, that is what you've achieved and accomplished, regardless of the outcomes and the fact that you may or may not be able to achieve the same outcomes because you're no longer in that domain. Does that make sense? So I don't know if Jacob is still on here, right? Jacob is an ambitious young man who joined me a few days ago. We met for the first time, and he is a student. Like literally, he's a student. He's a 15-year-old, probably high school student, right? And somebody could say, well, he is not by definition a high achiever. Now, I don't know anything about Jacob other than our brief interaction. But what I do know about him is that he is an achiever because he goes after his dreams, his goals, his desires, and he's going to do it no matter how hard it is. That's why on here, he was able to pitch. He solicited business, right? And said, hey, I can help you. And he had taken the time to craft this. Now, is he an expert at that? Not yet, because he's starting to build a business, right? He's at the early stages. But the reality is that without him telling me up front that he was a 15-year-old young man, I didn't know the difference. How would I know, right? And what I'm sharing here, right, this story is that we all have to start and stop and start and stop. And if we allow our failures or our perceived failures, because the fact is that your achievements do not define who you are, whose you are, how you operate in the world, and what's next for you. The fact that you've had to stop achieving for whatever reason does not mean that you are not able to achieve at all. And the brain is so funny because it starts to make generalizations, right? Anytime you say, oh, all or nothing, you know that you've started to slip into a cognitive bias. And that just simply means that your brain is starting to make you think certain thoughts that may or may not be true. Most of the time, they're not true. And as a result, if you don't catch yourself in that moment, just to pull yourself back and say, wait, the fact that I didn't achieve now, the fact that I didn't achieve the one thing, which is a tiny thing, right? The fact that I didn't get to all the things on my to-do list, the fact that I didn't achieve that goal doesn't mean that I am not a high achieving woman, that I am not a high achiever. I may not have achieved what I wanted yet in that goal, but if it's still aligned to you, like if it's still something that you deeply desire, just know, because in scripture it says that what is for you is for you. And so that means that what is for you will still be for you when you are well and good and ready to come back and do it. And there's a divine timing for everything. There is an appointment on God's calendar for each of us. Dr. Snorkel, are you a Jehovah's Witness? No, I am a follower of Christ. But God loves you, regardless of what you believe. So, but thank you for the question. So, when we understand this, then you do not have to be defined by your achievements. They're good, but they're I want you to consider them to be like cherry on the cake. And I know part of you, especially if you really, really identify as a high achiever, part of you is going to fight me on this because you're going to go, well, how in the world am I a high achiever if I have stopped achieving? I'm pausing because I want you to just think that through. If you are a high achiever and you identify as a high achiever, you have already achieved, right? And even if you are in the early stages, because this is a chicken and an egg, how you see yourself, the vision that you have for you and your own identity is such a powerful way to help you accomplish more goals. Like if you shift your identity at the core of who you are in terms of how you see yourself, everything else becomes easier. And that's why the people who are like, you could be homeless. And there are stories of people, like if you just Google this, right? Like all the rags to riches, how did they achieve before they achieved? Do you know what I mean? They had to be able to see it in their mind's eye first. They had to believe that they were a high achiever so that they could achieve the kinds of results that they desired to achieve. But they weren't attached to the beingness of a high achiever, which meant that when you stop achieving, right? Because if you just put pause and you say, like, I have to do something different, chances are that you are still achieving, but it looks different. So I'll give you an example. Because oftentimes, especially for women, we struggle, but there's also a lot of stigma around stay-at-home mom, work-at-home mom, work from outside of the house. And it can cause a lot of angst. It can cause a lot of like banging of heads that is a complete waste of time, in my humble opinion. You can agree to disagree. So when a lot of women, because like my accountant actually did this. My accountant was a high achieving woman, still a high achieving woman. But most of her achievements were in the domain of business. As an accountant, she was a senior practicing partner for a big firm here in Canada. Okay. And so when I found her, when I started my business and I needed an accountant and we were brought together, I just thought she was the bee's knees, right? I clicked with her and I was like, amazing, great, doing great things. Her daughter got, unfortunately, very sick, childhood leukemia. And as you can imagine, she dropped everything. And she said, I have a sick kid and we don't know what's going to happen to her. She has cancer and it needs to be addressed. And so she stopped working, right? Now, does that make her not a high achiever? I'm not going to answer that. I want you to just consider if this was a situation that you faced, or maybe you have faced, do you suddenly say that woman is no longer a high achiever because she's no longer able to achieve what she wants in her career goals, which is how we viewed her, right? Versus she now has to take care of her daughter full time because she's sick with leukemia. So she went off, took care of her daughter. Her daughter got better, and then she came back to work. And as she came back to work, as a lot of times happens with my clients, there was a misalignment. There was a disconnection. There was a deeper purpose. She had a spiritual awakening, but it was beyond that. She realized, like, what the heck am I doing here? Because I have now 2 kids at home, and I know how precious life is. And she was at the top of her game. She was winning awards left and right. And she was in the early stages of her career, but already a partner. So for her to walk away in the prime of her career was a very courageous thing. It was also very difficult. And especially because she was a high achiever. She'd achieved so much in her career already at that point. And then she decided to walk away. She'd already walked away once because her daughter was sick. Her daughter was no longer sick, was completely healthy, thank God, right? But now she came back to work, not even a year later, and then she reached out to me and said, Susan, I'm taking a sabbatical. And I knew in that moment, because of my own health journey and having gone through this same kind of identity crisis of I'm a high achiever and now I can't achieve. Who the heck am I? And to have this kind of awakening to what really is important when you can't achieve, when you can't do the same level of things that you were doing before, when the doing of the thing becomes so important that it's all consuming and it's all identifying, such that when you can no longer do the things that you counted on yourself to be able to do, it diminishes how you view yourself. Does this make sense? So when she had said, I'm taking a sabbatical, I knew in that moment, based off of my own experience, and because I'm connected with God, she wasn't going to come back. And she hasn't. And I am very happy for her because she is still a high achieving woman. She's just no longer achieving in the original domain that she did her original work. But she has published a book. She's had another child. She has a fulfilling life. She's been there for her family. She's been able to support her husband, who has also been, going up and up and up in his career, and to be able to cheer him on while she takes care of the things that are important in their lives. So my question to you again is she still high achieving? And I think sometimes that we don't, especially as high achieving women, we don't give ourselves an opportunity to redefine what achievement looks like, to redefine what is most important. And this goes beyond why, right? Simon Sinek, start with why, which I agree with to a point, but I think it's so much deeper than that, because I believe that your why can change. Like your why, your raison d'être. Sorry for my French, but I don't know how else to describe it. Your reason for being, it doesn't quite translate in the English because it's so much more than that. Your deep why, I don't think will change over time, but sometimes it gets covered up by stuff that feels important in the moment, right? Like back in my 20s, it felt really important to grow a successful career. Even when I first started my business, it felt really important that I build a very successful business. Sometimes we do that at the detriment of what it is that actually fuels us, right? Our true purpose, our reason for being here on the earth. You can call that calling, you can call that purpose, you can call that an assignment, you can call that whatever it is that kind of aligns to you. But what I want you to consider is that your achievements and the level of your success do not define who you are, how you are, whose you are, and why you are here. Is it part of the journey? 100%. And I know that if you're here, that chances are you operate from a place of excellence. Like you're really good at what you do. And even if you're in the earlier stages of your journey, that you still have accomplished a lot. And so here's the practical piece that I wanted to suggest, right? Hello, Big C. Can I get in touch with you? Sure. It means let me know what it's about or how I can help. You can put it in the comments. But there's contact information. You can send me an Instagram message or send me a DM, and I'll open for questions in 2 seconds, or email me. Okay? info@susanmcveigh.com. My last name is spelled same as the channel. You'll see it somewhere here. So when we understand, so here's the practical piece. Okay. Thank you, Holy Spirit. So the practical piece that we want to apply is, if right now you are in a time of your life, a period, a season, a moment, understand that it's just a moment. Now, momentum is created moment by moment. So it's important to be mindful of what those moments are and to choose wisely what we decide, right? Because you get to decide how you see that. So if you decide to see that I am a high achiever and I am not achieving, and so woe is me, I have failed, then you're going to create more failure. If you decide to believe that I am a high achiever, and right now, the main way that I believed that I could achieve, that I've stopped that, AKA career, AKA business, AKA your family, right? I've stopped that. I've stopped achieving. I want you to instead reframe that and say, I'm making a choice to redirect my attention to something that requires my priority. Like that is a priority, right? So when I needed to take care of my health became a priority. And although on paper, even by looking at me, you would say, you failed. You had a breakdown, Susan. How could you consider yourself to be healthy? I had to redirect my attention and say, if I could be achieving a certain level of success in this domain, I'm smart, I'm resourceful, I'm disciplined, I'm willing to do what it takes, even though it might feel hard, because it was hard, to direct my attention and prioritize what I was doing over here with my career and shifting that over here so that I could live. Did I want to do that? Heck no. I wanted to go to work. I fought my doctors every day. Every time I would go and visit, and she would say, okay, you need to take 6 weeks off. And I said, 6 weeks? That's a long time. That's a long time. Like, I have work to do. Let me roll up my sleeves and get in it. And then my body, my mind, my soul, my whole self was like, no, you can't do this. I'd be crying and crying and crying and not able to stop. I'd have anxiety, panic attacks. I was so depressed. I couldn't even follow conversations. I couldn't even read. Like that's scary stuff when your whole system goes, wah, 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 stop, right? And so I was forced to do this. And I'm sharing this because I want you not to be forced, for you to understand that you are the master of your life and that you get to direct your time, your attention, and your desires in a way that helps propel you forward into a better future that's going to be more fulfilling. But if you are stuck in the moment right now because you keep looking backwards and looking at what I lost, I coulda, woulda, shoulda, and I've done it, which is why I can stand here and tell you, don't stay stuck for that long. I always tell my clients, you can cry for a day, get it out, right? Because emotions are energy in motion. We have to allow that energy to move through you or get stuck. And guess what happens when it gets stuck? It causes pain, it causes suffering, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, like the whole 9 yards. And you may not want to get out of bed. I get it. I understand. But the reality is that you have a purpose that's far greater than you. That's why we're here. Like, I don't know who you are, but I do know who you are because I know that God has sent me to you and me to you, me to you and you to me. So you have to understand that your priority in whatever it was that you were achieving before as a high achiever is no longer the priority if you have stopped achieving in that area. That does not define that you are a failure. It defines the fact that the achievement that you achieved there now needs to be redirected, that same time, attention, focus, and energy, and it may look different because maybe you have gone through something similar to me where you're being redirected, right? Maybe you are coming through a difficult season. The Bible describes a wilderness season where the children of Israel had to escape from Egypt and Pharaoh. And then before they got to the promised land, they had a period of wilderness. They had a period where they just wandered for 40 years. That's a long time. But regardless of how long you felt like you've kind of lost your way, the point here is you can choose to see where you're going. If you need help with this, come and join our vision workshop. The vision workshop is happening on Monday. Okay? The vision workshop is happening on Monday. It's $33. And if you want in, say, I'm in vision, and you will get access to the live, to the replay for $33. It will be sold later for $97. And as a bonus, I'm going to give you a gift of my strategic business planning workshop, which is right now separately just sold for $97. So you're going to get that included as well. Okay? So that's the first part of this practical piece. The second part of this is I want you to spend some time, and depending on how old you are and what you have done in your life, but even if you've been on the earth for any period longer than 5 or 10 years, this will take you some time, right? This is not something that I want you to rush through. The more thoughtful you can be, the better off you are. I want you to spend some time and write down at the top everything that you've accomplished. Everything that you've accomplished, everything that you've achieved, every single thing that people have commented on, the things that you have in your life, the people that you have built relationships with, the situations that you have overcome, the places that you have lived, the people that you have touched, the things that you have said to other people, right? Even if it's, here's the example that I want to give you, because I think sometimes we underestimate the impact that we have in somebody's life. If you go to the grocery store and there's somebody in front of you and they're, maybe they're fumbling, and you take the time to help them put their groceries up on the conveyor belt, that's an accomplishment. That's your kindness coming through. Does that make sense? So I want you to think for yourself. And this is why it's going to take some time. The more time that you give it, the better, because I expect that you put this paper someplace where you're going to walk through your house every day, put it on your phone, and as things come to you, right, that you're going to be reminded, remember who you actually are and the things that you have accomplished, the things that people don't even see because they're not the things that you get accolades for, the type of person that you are, the character of who you are, right? Those matter more than sometimes the physical stuff that you actually get to achieve. And okay, I gotta go. I'm so sorry. But my daughter's at the front door. She just finished her an appointment, and she obviously didn't take her house keys. So I want you to put your comments below. Ask me any questions. If you want access to this vision workshop, which we're doing live on Monday, yes, I know it's right before the holidays, but God said this is when we need to do it so that you can move through the holiday season with more clarity, with more focus, with more conviction, and with more peace because you understand what your purpose is. So that is for somebody on here. If you have any questions about this or any other topic, please feel free to put them down below in the comments and I will make sure that I come back to them. I apologize for the abrupt nature, but hashtag real life. And I am a mom first, so my kids come first. I think she might have come in, but regardless, I need to go and check on her. So with that, we will be back tomorrow. We being the royal we, which is me. So I hope that you are able to understand that your achievements do not define all of you. They're part of you. They're important, but they're not all of who you are. And that means that even if you don't achieve, you are still loved, you are still valued, you still have worth and purpose on the earth. And the more that you stay unattached to the actual doing and the achieving, the easier it is for you to do what you are called to do. With that, we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.